Okay, hey, we're up to 1-1, day 2. So here it comes. I think we're going to start out with something a little easier to wrap your head around. Nice, easy start, I hope. The initial concept I want to communicate to you right now is identifying positive or negative intervals. In other words, I want to think of it really simply. Positives are any part of the graph above the x-axis. Negative intervals are anything below the x-axis. And as you can see, I've got two little samples here. I got a linear function. Again, linear means line. Quadratic means parabola. So get used to that language. But let's take that definition I just gave you. Remember, they're asking us to use interval notation. So that's something we learned day one. Hopefully you're accustomed to it, a little more comfortable. So here we go. Identify the positive intervals. Remember what I said, it's anything above the x-axis. So here's the x-axis. Well, what's above it? Notice I made anything above the x-axis purple. So if I'm talking about the interval, and notice this little clue, think domain, left and right. Don't think up and down, even though these arrows are going up and down. Think where on this graph, where is it above the x-axis? Well, it starts right here and goes this way forever. It's above the x-axis. Where does it start? Right here, 2, 0. The question is, though, what's positive? A positive number is any number greater than 0. So even though this is a filled-in dot, it is not positive at that dot. So basically, from this point, the x value 2, it begins to be positive immediately after 2. So how do I say that? Well, the positive interval, where is it above the x-axis, starts at 2, but it doesn't include 2. Because at 2, right there, 2, 0, at that point, it's 0. It's not above the x-axis, it's not below the x-axis. So that's why I want to use parentheses here. It doesn't include it. But then, it's above the x-axis forever in the x direction. So there, it's above the x-axis from 2, not including, forever that way. It's above. Now, how about the negative interval? The negative interval is any portion of the graph that's below the x-axis. Now we've got to think in terms of domain and use interval notation. So, where is this negative? Well, anything red. But remember, we're talking about the domain. So the question is, where is it negative? And again, we're gonna focus on the interval notation. You start with the lowest. So it's everything negative goes from negative infinity, meaning if I go to the left forever, this graph just keeps going down, 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 down. It's a dangerous thing to say down, 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 because I'm actually saying how far left does this graph go down? Well, it goes down all the way to negative infinity, which is this way. So forever left, it's going to be under the x-axis. But then, as I move to the right, it gets right to this point, and then it transitions. That's where it's 0. That's neither positive or negative. So I say, okay, it's red all the way to 2, but that's parentheses, because remember, the value 2 is 2 comma 0. 0 means it's right on the x-axis. It's not above, it's not below. That's why I use parentheses there. Let's move on to this one. Let's first talk about the positive. Where is it positive? It's the purple stuff. So it's basically from negative 2 all the way to 2. But remember, these points themselves are not considered positive or negative because they're right on the x-axis. Therefore, I'm going to say it starts at -2 parentheses because it doesn't include it. Then it goes all the way to 2, again, not including it. Because it's only these values above the x-axis from -2 to 2. Remember, when they're asking us to talk about these things, we're to think about the domain, not the range. Now, how about negative? Well, that's another way of saying, where is the graph below the x-axis? Well, here's a chunk. So this goes down, 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 down forever. But what we want to talk about is, where does it come from? Well, as it continues forever, it's below the graph from -infinity all the way up to -2, but it doesn't include it. But it's also negative from here down. And now I'm moving left to right. So it starts at 2, and it will be below the graph forever to the right as I think about this graph getting wider and wider and wider as it goes down. So there's your introduction to positive or negative intervals. One thing that I want to clarify here, as you're doing these types of problems, you'll notice all of my answers go from a lower value to a higher value, lower value to the higher value, lower to higher, lower to higher, lower to higher. What that means is all of these answers are going to be in chunks where your mind is thinking, what's my furthest left point? What's my furthest right point in this situation? So think about that as you're answering it. So again, the positive starts here, furthest left point, 2, furthest right, all the way to infinity. The negative, this goes left forever, even though you're thinking down, it's going left, so it starts here, moving to the right, it ends at 2, everything below the graph. So think left to right as you're considering these positive and negative intervals. All right, next concept. This is more of a common sense thing, but there's some rules attached to it that you need to become familiar with. The question is going to ask you, is this an increasing or decreasing function? Well, if you don't know the rules that are implied, you're going to be really confused. So this is an always, always rule when you're asked, is the function increasing or decreasing? Here's the rule. You must think left to right, left to right. And I threw out this word roller coaster. For example, notice this is very consistent looking graph. This one down, up. This one down, up. Now, if I take this idea roller coaster, and I put myself in the roller coaster right here. There I am. And I have to move left to right. That means this is the roller coaster. My little roller coaster cart will be going up. So this would be increasing. Now, that wouldn't change regardless of where I put my little cart. I'd still be going up, moving left to right. If I put my cart back here, I'd be still going up. So it doesn't matter where you start because this is consistent regardless of where you put the little roller coaster guy. This is a little different because if I put my roller coaster guy right here, it's going to be going down. Now let me go back to here because I never really answered it. The question is, where is it increasing? Because they want it in interval notation. Again, it's going to be a common theme. So basically, no matter where I start on this infinitely long line, it's going to be increasing from negative infinity all the way to infinity. So that would be my answer if they ask me about that particular graph. Where is it increasing? That would be my answer if they ask it in interval notation. If they just want a generic, is it increasing or decreasing, that would be your answer. If they want to know where is it increasing, that would be your supplementary answer. Now, let's move on to this. Notice we've got two parts to this. We've got the downward motion But then if the roller coaster changes and all of a sudden I'm going this way, we have part of our roller coaster that's going down and then part of it that's going up. So this is both increasing, so I'm going to just abbreviate it, increasing, but it's also decreasing. And now if they ask us to explain where's the interval where it's increasing, it would be increasing from here up. So I'm going to start with the increasing portion, and that would go from 0. Now, the book actually has parentheses here, meaning it doesn't include it. I think you could probably get away with saying it starts at 0, including it. I don't think that's, we're splitting hairs there with that. But it starts here at 0 and it goes up. It's increasing forever as you move to the right along the x-axis. Decreasing, that would be this portion. So thinking how far left would this go if I kept going, that would be negative infinity, but then it would also stop decreasing right here. So again, I'm going to put 0 bracket. The book actually has a parentheses there. I think that's just arguing over whether or not to include the 0 value. Let's go to this one. As you notice, there's a down portion and then there's an up portion. So I'm not going to include my roller coaster guy. This is where it would be going down. You can just see it. This is where it would be going up. So what is this graph? Well, I'm going to start with decreasing this time. It's decreasing. I know this is forcing your brain to think up, but it wants to know how far left would this ride be decreasing. It would start at negative infinity because this thing just keeps getting wider and wider forever and ever. So it would be decreasing that whole time all the way to here. So once again, we're talking the x values. So all the way to 0. I'm going to put a bracket around it. I know the book is going to be mad at me. But where is it increasing? It's increasing from here. So I'm going to start at 0. And then it's going to be increasing forever in the wide concept, talking the x value here. So all the way to infinity, it's increasing.